Welcome to Clinical Conversations' 122nd podcast. It comes to you from Journal Watch, whose website is at jwatch.org. I'm Joe Elia. It's May 19th, 2011. Dr. Danielle Schurer of Physicians First Watch and the Medical University of South Carolina is also here. We take a slightly different tack this time. Our invited guests gracefully declined, but sent along a statement which covers the main question we were going to ask about.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about pregnancy risk in newer generation antiepileptic drugs. Earlier in this week, JAMA published an epidemiologic study on the effect of these newer drugs on the risk for birth defects. We know that older antiepileptic drugs have known teratogenic effects when taken in the first trimester. But until now, we've had very little information about the teratogenic effects, if any, of the newer generation drugs in order to guide usage just before or during pregnancy. It's estimated that about 1 in 200 pregnant women are on antiepileptic drugs during their pregnancy, which are being taken for a host of indications other than epilepsy, including migraine headaches, neuropathic pain, bipolar disorder, among others. So in order to address this, Danish epidemiologists conducted a 13-year analysis of all pregnancies in their country between 1996 and 2008. During that time period, some women were still using the older generation drugs, but most had switched over to the newer ones, especially during their pregnancy.
And so the epidemiologists searched through the country's prescription records database for patients who were taking one of the 5 newer generation drugs: lamotrigine, oxcarbazepine, topiramate, gabapentin, and levetiracetam. Thank you, Kaiser Permanente, for guidance on these pronunciations. The researchers then compared the prevalence odds ratios for birth defects among those not taking the drugs with those taking one of the 5. They found no increased risk after adjustment for some patients who took older drugs along with the newer ones.
Although when we covered this earlier in Physicians First Watch, it struck the editors that one of the newer drugs, topiramate, had recently been given a warning by the FDA after an association was found with its use during pregnancy in cleft lip and cleft palate. In addition, there was another small study from the UK comprising about 200 exposed pregnancies, which found a 9% incidence of major congenital malformations. We were going to ask the JAMA authors about this, although they declined to be interviewed, citing lack of clinical expertise. They did send along a statement, and Joe will read that now.
Okay, this is from the paper's senior author, Dr. Anders Havid, in an email to me. Quote, "Our study was designed to evaluate the risk of major birth defects following the use of a number of newer generation antiepileptics in early pregnancy. We found no support for an increased risk of birth defects. Topiramate use and clefts are rare in our cohort, and the topiramate and clefts signals is new, and as such, our study was not designed to evaluate this association. We only evaluated specific groups of birth defect in the context of any newer generation antiepileptics and lamotrigine alone, where we had sufficient statistical power, and our study does not present results on topiramate and clefts, nor do we conclude or make recommendations with respect to topiramate and clefts. Therefore, our study is not in opposition to the U.S. and U.K. studies. On the basis of the recent FDA warning, we will of course look into the topiramate and clefts association in detail in our cohort." End quote.
And that certainly is a fair statement. So in short, this study really has not removed any concerns about the association between topiramate exposure during pregnancy and birth defects. And in that same vein, the FDA has recently moved topiramate to a pregnancy category D, which means, and quoting from the FDA, there's positive evidence of human fetal risk based on human data, but the potential benefits from the use of this drug in pregnant women may be acceptable in certain situations despite its risks, end of quote.
Okay, so we've added links in the podcast website, which is podcasts.jwatch.org, to the relevant studies and FDA documents. and we hope that you'll find this useful. That's conversation 122. It was a two-way conversation and a brief one. Earlier podcasts, all of them, are available at podcasts.jwatch.org. Clinical Conversations executive producer is Adore Yano. I'm Joe Elia. Join us next time. For myself and Dr. Danielle Schurer, thank you for listening.